Yo, yo, yo. What's up? We back one more again.
We're back.
All right.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Success in Black and White.
The podcast. We are back one more again.
We're coming to you live
from the house.
And we have a special guest coming to us from her house. I'm excited to introduce you guys to Anaja Newsome. Anaja is one of our good friends. She also works in the field with us. And Anaja, we're so excited to have you. And before we jump into asking you questions and kind of talking about what we're going to talk about today in the podcast, I do want to give actually, we should talk about what we're going to talk about today in the podcast.
I guess that's good. I mean, we can do that.
Let's do that before I give your bio.
It's our podcast. We can do whatever we want to.
We can do whatever
we do. But I guess since we have a guest,
we should be more formal.
Yeah, we'll be a little
We're
more
never formal.
No, but definitely though, let's share with them what we're going to be talking about. Yeah. And then we'll jump into the introduction so that we can start to hear her voice.
Yes. So we're excited to bring you Anaja, and Anaja is going to be talking about actually a ton of things. But we are most excited to have her talk about the various forms of exercise, and specifically exercise with minority populations, most specifically with Black women. As you can see, she is a Black woman. And so we're excited to bring her on our podcast and have her share some of her story and have her share her research and have her share, actually, she has a brand new company that we're really excited about. And so we're going to have her share that with you as well. But I do want to give you like the proper introduction. And so I am going to tell our listeners about our guest. And so Anaja is an educator, she's an entrepreneur and a scholar with a decade of experience that spans higher education, community and corporate wellness programs, and coaching. Anaja has proven to be an ambassador for holistic approaches to functional fitness, competitive weightlifting, and nutrition. As a PhD candidate, she is particularly interested in the psychosocial determinants of exercise, including motivation and adherence, and the methodological and measurement aspects of exercise research and program evaluation. That's a mouthful. Anaja is the owner of AM Health and Fitness Consulting, LLC, a research and program evaluation firm that supports organizational assessment and program evaluation services for the educational and wellness sectors. She's committed to supporting research and developing educational content to inform the future of the fitness industry and its leaders. That is such a good bio. I'm so excited to have you with us, and we're excited because this is our field, right? Yeah. And so even though I'm like you excite me because you are like the exercise side and you're the analysis and the research side. So you got both of us hooked right now, and this is just so exciting. So we definitely have questions for you. And really the first one is, we want our listeners to know about you. So talk to us a lot about your personal and career journey. What kind of roles do you fulfill in your life right now? Because we know what you do, but they don't know what you do. And then what is your calling and like, what is your passion? Just tell us about you. Talk to us about Anaja.
Thank you so much for having me on here. I'm really, really excited. I'm pumped because I really have found my calling in equity and methodological issues that we have as it relates to exercise science and how we're doing research in that field. As a practitioner and a scholar, I kind of sit in both lanes, and I know that, April, you can speak to this. Usually you have a practitioner or you have the researcher, and to really just be involved in both and be able to inform both has been really eye-opening for me. So I'm really excited to have the opportunity to talk about that. As you mentioned, I've been in collegiate recreation, higher education for more than 10 years now. I think I lost track when I hit 10 years because then after that, like, who's counting anymore? And so I've had the opportunity to work in collegiate recreation, primarily came up through the fitness and wellness space. And I've enjoyed watching students connect to fitness programs and in this pursuit of this healthy lifestyle and how we've been able to complement that with their academic success. And so I've really enjoyed that. My experiences have also taken me outside of recreation in a collegiate standpoint. And I've worked in corporate and commercial fitness, and I've even been able to work in hospital wellness. And so I've been able to see this field truly from a holistic standpoint. And I like to say from, the preventative medicine side of it, using exercise as this preventative tool, but then also on the other side of it, using exercise as a medicine, as a cure for a lot of the diseases, the preventable diseases that we see out there. A lot of my research focuses on the mental connection, the mental health connection, and how we have been able to navigate exercise to improve anxiety and depression and things like that, specifically in college students. And so that's kind of where I tie back into that collegiate recreation. Personally, I'm a competitive weightlifter. I've been in sport my whole life. I was thrown into softball at a young age, and I've tried a lot of different sports. Didn't say I was necessarily good at all of them, but I do like to move. I like to be outside. I'm extremely competitive. I like to win, and so I think that both my personal and my career journey has been able to walk a parallel path. And I think that's something that a lot of individuals aren't able to say, is that the things that I love and the things that I do for a living, they intersect in so many different ways. And I think that has informed my practice. So that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So I have a follow-up to that. And it could also be a clarification question. So did you know this is what you wanted to do growing up? I know that you said that there was a parallel between the personal side and kind of the professional side right now. But growing up, like Anaja, like you're like, this is what I want to do and this is what I'm going to be. And I know I want to do this. Is that how it played out? Tell us a little bit about how that worked out for you.
So I don't know if you all can share, if you all share in this, but I didn't know collegiate recreation was a field growing up. What is that? I went to college and needed to make some money, and I was like, oh, I can work at the gym? Sure, like sign me up for that. So growing up, you didn't really have the option to pursue sport and fitness and recreation as a career, right? You're taught that you need to grow up to be a doctor, a lawyer, a dentist, an accountant, but you're not taught that, teaching people about health and wellness and the importance of it could be a lucrative career. So I played for fun, and then I kind of just fell into recreation. Actually, I tore my ACL for the second time playing softball, and I decided at that point, like, I should probably hang up my cleats for a little bit and find something else. And so I walked into the recreation center and took my first indoor cycling class. That was the only thing you can do because I couldn't run, couldn't jump. And so I had to pedal on a bike. And I'm like, what is this? You can't get exercise from this. This isn't competition. This isn't any sort of like vigorous exercise. And then I took my first cycle class, and I was, proven wrong really quickly. And that's actually how I got into teaching group fitness classes when I was in college.
So here's a follow-up to the follow-up. I'm interested. I'm sure that our listeners are probably wondering as well, when you decided to choose this career path, how did your family respond to it? Like, how did you go home and say, to whomever your guardians were and say, look, this is what I'm doing as a professional? Like, what was that like?
So here we are 10 plus years later, and I still don't think they know what I do. Actually, my grandmother, funny thing, my bachelor's degree was in exercise science. Exercise and sports science was the title of it. And my grandmother told people for the longest time that I was a sports doctor. And so I guess maybe she planted the seed early in my life that I needed to go get a terminal degree. But she called me a sports doctor. She told everyone that her granddaughter was a sports doctor. And I'm like, yeah, that's what I do. So I don't know that it was that my family, my parents really understood what I did. They knew that there was athletics. They knew that there was sports, but they didn't know that it was a career field. And so I would say that it wasn't until recently that my mom finally, I'm not gonna say finally, but I educated her enough that like, hey, I'm making a living. I'm living out here on my own. I'm making ends meet. I'm not calling you every 5 seconds. So I have to be doing something right. And that's when she got on board. And we'll probably get into this a little bit later, but my mom had some health issues growing up that really was a catalyst for me to pursue this exercise behavior, because it wasn't something that I saw growing up. I did not see my parents exercise. I didn't see my mom get out and, walk in the neighborhood until she started to have health issues. And fortunately, I witnessed her turn it around. And now, 20 years later, I'm still seeing my mom, get up and exercise. And it's been good.
That's awesome. I'm done with the follow-up. I mean, I have follow-up to follow-ups. I got, you know me, but like I said, I'm trying to be on my best behavior.
I know, you are. You're doing
and
well.
I know that we have a somewhat of an outline because we pretty much kind of just go
Well,
with
it just struck me how similar your story is to Daryl's story.
I know, that's why I said I got questions on questions.
Athletes, both torn, knee, sports career ending knee injuries, and it just strikes me how similar your stories are. And I just think that's really cool that you both ended up, we all ended up in some way in a college recreation department doing some sort of something. I'm no longer in that field per se, but I just think it's a really cool parallel. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we have for you, we actually, the three of us have talked about this before, and we have, for our listeners, there's a point where we were supposed to present together. So we have a long-standing relationship, before COVID-19 happened. But so we have a good relationship, and we've talked in the past about disparities in exercise and fitness. And I think that is really important, because that is something that is, I hate to say right now, but like quote unquote a hot topic. But to be honest, this is something that we need to dive into, especially as we look at disparities in exercise and fitness, in perceptions. And we know that there are disparities. We talk often, just not necessarily about exercise, but the various disparities and biases and prejudice. And we're really trying to dig into what stereotypes are out there to try to dismantle them, specifically in race, ethnicity, gender, and kind of the intersection of all of those. And so something that we've talked about is what about the disparities? Where are the disparities that you see emerging in your research, that you see just from observation, from being a participant, from being a coach? We know you're a coach, and I'm sure you'll talk a lot more about that. But just from your experience in the exercise and fitness industries, where are the disparities? Where do they lie, specifically in terms of race, ethnicity, and gender, and those intersectionalities? Where are you seeing the barriers to exercise and fitness?
I see it so much, and where do I start with that question is always how long do we have in this podcast? Because there's so many of them. I'll start here. I'll start by saying I did a search. I'm on Instagram, and I like to go down the rabbit hole of hashtags. And if you use the hashtag, I don't know, women in fitness women, fitness motivation, you have to scroll a lot before you see Black women, because the hashtag women in fitness points to the white women dominant stereotype of what body image is, what fitness is about. And you actually have to use the hashtag Black women in fitness in order to see people that look like me exercising and enjoying, powerlifting and weightlifting and strength training. And so I'll start there, that it's interesting that there has to be a specific search in order to pull up a specific group of people. And so you have this dominant narrative of what fitness looks like, who exercises and who doesn't. And I think it's interesting to see kind of that disparity there. One other interesting thing that I've found recently, more so in the research side of things, is the purposes or the narrative behind why women specifically, because that's usually my target demographic, is women of all ethnicities and races, but more specifically in this conversation, Black women, we are written off as Black women don't exercise because of their hair. And it's like, 20 years ago, maybe that was the narrative. And it kind of just ended there. It's, Black women don't exercise because they don't want to sweat out their hair. And what we don't talk about is the picture of what exercise looks like, the picture of what athletic looks like. And so I think about looking at athleisure clothing, or I pull up, and I'm not going to name any specific names, but you pull them up and you're like, is that supposed to fit me? Am I supposed to exercise in that? Is that what's available? And then when you do see Black women in these magazines or on these websites, it's usually in the plus size section. And I'm like, I don't really consider myself plus size. I don't even consider myself overweight. And so why is it that, a curvy Black woman is automatically associated with plus size, or the term that I've used lately is othered. It's not in the popular culture. It's something else. It's its own category. So I'll start there and just kind of that's where my interest has lied a lot lately, is as far as disparities go.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. Like, when I know we talked before and I was struck by when you said that. I've never thought about that before, that of course, like, white woman, so all of the clothing is catered to me. And so when you said that was probably one of the major barriers to Black women feeling comfortable to go and exercise, is just the fact that there are not clothes that are made for them. There's not the narrative that, like, yes, Black women exercise too, and it's very normal, and there are good reasons to do it. Like, it just struck me. And so I'm glad that you're talking about that, because I think that body image is a big factor for a lot of people, regardless of race, regardless of gender. But I think it's something that we have to start dismantling. I'm that's powerful.
So she said it, and I'm going to actually take this as a transition, the dismantling part. For me, this is a personal topic because I have 5 sisters and my mom. So, that I grew up and like you said, the stereotypes or them feeling comfortable and participating in any type of recreational activity because it was like so varied in what the opportunities were. It's like you either had to be all this to be considered as working out or exercising, or you had to be this, which is the non-active. And I think you spoke about it a little bit earlier about, like, how is exercise defined? What is determined as exercise? So for me personally, and for the listeners, we always like to leave them with something. Like, if my sisters and my mom were listening, like, what would you say to them to try to jumpstart that for them, or encourage and motivate them to take this step to exercise and for them to feel comfortable in, exercising?
So I'll talk a little bit about this, and I'll tie it into some research that I'm doing with leisure constraints. I will say this is my mantra lately with a lot of different things in life, but start where you are with what you have. You do not have to have a gym membership. You do not have to have the matching sports bra and the leggings and that cost you $200. Like, you don't need that. You can walk in your neighborhood and get 30 minutes of physical activity a day and start to see small changes. What I have noticed, especially with novice exercisers, people who have not exercised before, small changes are big motivators. So really, I would just say start. The second thing I would say is find another Black woman in your neighborhood, in your church group, in your, in your mommy group, whatever you have going on that can support your efforts. Check in with them. Accountability. Even for me, and I've been, I'm on a competitive spectrum, and sometimes I need someone to be like, yeah, you're not tired. Go ahead and get that done. So accountability is huge, especially when you're talking about beginner weightlifter or beginner exercisers. They need that accountability. Stay off social media. Stay off social media, because social media will always and forever convince you that you're not good enough, that you don't have enough, that whatever you're doing is just, you have to take it to another level. So if you can convince yourself to not buy into, the hype and the stereotypes, because let me tell you, it's not curated for us naturally. I was telling my husband the other day that I needed to defriend some people on Instagram because it became too negative, it wasn't building me up. And so I would say, Daryl, if you can get your loved ones, your sisters, your mom to understand that they need social support. Social support is the number one factor to exercise adherence and motivation in women of all ages, but specifically of the 35 to 55-year-old age range. So social support, emotional social support is the number one driver and motivator. So it could be you calling them and checking in, on a day-to-day basis and say, hey, did you get that 30-minute walk in? When they start to see those small changes, it's going to encourage them to want to keep doing it and to want to do more. So those would be the recommendations that I have.
That's awesome. And I really like the way that you started out in the very first tip that you gave. I mean, I know my sisters, they like to look fly. So, the outfits and stuff. And, to buy into that is so easy to do when you're, like you said, you're doing those searches in Google or you're doing those searches on Instagram. And the first thing that you pop up and see are the white women wearing the matching outfits and the new shoes and stuff. And you feel like that's a part of being, fit and exercising and working out. And you feel like you need that. So I really like that you said, start where you are and whatever that looks like for you. So,
yeah.
One other thing I would add to that is that people undervalue the benefits of having a certified professional assisting you. And I see it a lot because that's my field, right? Like, that's what I do. That's how I make a living. But so many times, and I see it in the Black community, they're like, oh, I saw this thing on Instagram or YouTube, and so I'm going to do it. And then, it hurts, it doesn't work, it injures them. And then they're like, well, I can't work out because working out hurts. And I'm like, well, did you ask someone to build something for you? Did you ask someone to take a look at what your goals are, what your needs are, and really curate something that's going to be individualized for you? And, me, as I've been in this field for years, and I coach others, and I have people looking to me, and I still have a professional coach because I need someone to hold me accountable, to individualize, to see the things that I need to help me improve. And so I really would also recommend finding someone that you can trust, finding someone that is degreed, credentialed, whatever, that can support you in a way that is going to be, that's not going to injure you, that's not going to be harmful to you, and that can help promote your goals a lot faster.
Something went wrong.
Awesome.
Try again in 2 seconds.
Oh, thank you, Google.
Thanks, Google.
Oh, did it go wrong?
She don't know what she's talking about.
No, actually she does. I think she's listening in.
Oh, maybe she's listening.
And she's like, if you think that you can do it without a coach and you think that you need all of that other stuff to do it, something went wrong.
Something wrong.
Something went wrong.
I love that you are talking about accountability, because I think that piece is so important. And to tie that into social media and what we see on social media, it's not hard to go in and to look at, like, you see all these fitness accounts and you see all these accounts of people selling, like, Beachbody. Wait, is that what it's called?
I haven't seen so many. I think that's one.
So many accounts.
My favorite is the Fit Tea these days.
I'm gonna have to go see that one.
Tea.
So
Drink a tea and it, you know.
Shirt.
yeah, I thought it was like, if you put on this t-shirt, it'll help you look
You'll
fit.
be fit.
Yeah. No, you drink a tea, and it cleans you out or whatever, and then you're supposed to lose a bunch of weight. And I'm like, well, what? I'm like, well, what else did you think was gonna happen? Like, I don't. That's called, like, science. I mean, I just don't understand. That's not new and innovative. And how about you just eat like you have some sense and move more and sit less, and you get the same outcome.
Yeah. I think that social media has made it easier for people to create, like, there's so many creators, right? There's so much content creation. It's not a bad thing when people are credentialed, like, you have credentials, so follow Anaja, right? But it's a bad thing when people come in and they're like, let me sell you a tea, a fit tea, right? And so I think it's just, I think that people should be very careful who they do follow on social media. I will say that even your post today inspired me, because you were like, I just didn't have it in me to get it, and I went to go get it, and I was like, dang it, now I gotta take a walk because Anaja took a walk, and now I gotta go take a walk because she went and lifted.
Go get it.
Exactly.
I love it. And I follow people that I know are inspirational and motivating, because just like I talked about, social media and Instagram and all, and I said, get off of it. But then also there's times where I open it up and I'm like, okay, yeah, you're right. I thought I was tired, but maybe I can go for this walk for 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes turns into an hour. And now you're like, I'm motivated to do more. So sometimes, depending on how you have, set up your social media and who you follow and who you're connected to, it also can serve a really good purpose of motivating.
I think that's important. And I think that you are one of the people who's kind of leading these efforts and, like, putting out representative of, like, it doesn't have to be all, skinny white women who are size 2 who fit this narrative, and they honestly probably don't even work out, because where do you get the energy if you're not eating anything all day? But I just think it's important, like, that representation, and to purport that on social media. So it's just cool to follow you. We're going to put your handle for Instagram, at least, because I think that's probably the one that you use the most. We'll put that in this episode so you all can go to show notes to follow Anaja. She's really fun to follow.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, this is really important. And I'm excited to kind of hear this, because we did talk through a lot of these points, but this one you shot back at us, and
Go ahead. I'm listening. I know you're excited about this one. Go ahead.
I'm excited about this one. I want to know, you talk a little bit about changing the narrative of exercise, and I think that's super important, and I think you might have dove into it a little bit, but I want to hear you talk about changing that narrative from what we think of exercise and what we see about exercise on social media to what exercise actually is, and how do we change that narrative?
Yeah, I'll talk about it from my experience in my household with my friends who are Black women. A lot of times, exercise is seen as a punishment. It's It's what you have to do because you ate pizza on the weekend. It's what you have to do because maybe you had 2 glasses of wine and then you have to go sweat it out in the morning. Exercise should be a celebration. Like, it should be this exciting understanding of what your body is capable of doing. It supports you all day. When you get up and walk up the stairs, yeah, your knees might hurt a little bit, but it's carrying you up those stairs. It is getting you from point A to point B. And I just think that so many times so much we talk about exercise as this punishment for, oh, I have to lose weight. That's what exercise is for. And I'll talk about, and it's really prevalent in the Black community. I'll ask friends and family members, do you exercise? I don't need to lose weight. And I'm like, that's not the question that I asked. I asked if you exercise. She's already skinny. She doesn't need to exercise. And I'm like, that's not the narrative that exercise needs to carry with it. It's about being healthy. It's about, for me, it's about mental health. It's about clarity. It's about being productive with the rest of my day. I wake up in the morning and go for a run. Ooh, cardio. My heart started to pound just from saying the word cardio. But I get up and go ride my bike, so that for the rest of the day, I'm alert and I'm productive and I can handle the other things that may be thrown my way because I exercise. It's not, oh, because I had a cupcake last night. I probably had 3 of them. And guess what? I'm going to wake up and feel okay about it. And so that's what I meant about changing this narrative behind exercise. When I was growing up, I was thin. I was tall, I was lanky, a little bit uncoordinated. And all I heard was, you need some meat on your bones. I'm like, well, I don't know what that means, but okay. And, I'm from the South. So I'm given plate after plate after plate. Even after I eat dinner, they're like, you want some more? And I'm like, well, I haven't finished what's on my plate. And so there's this narrative behind, you need to be thick, you need to be voluptuous, you need to be curvy, big boned, all of the things. Well, then, I had some health issues later on in life, my early 20s, mid 20s, and I gained about 65 pounds in the course of 3 years. I was not healthy. I was not, you talk about body image. I had all kinds of negative body image, about myself. But my family was like, ooh, you sure are eating well. Married life is treating you well. You sure are packing on the pounds. And I'm like, well, growing up, I was too thin. Now I'm too thick. What do you want from me? And so you kind of have this, you need to go exercise. Are you still exercising? I thought you were exercising for a living. That's what I'm told. And I'm like, that has nothing to do with who I am and how I feel about myself and how healthy I am. And, now that I have lost that weight again, they're like, oh, you really are getting small. Don't get too small. And I'm like, I just can't win. I will never be good enough, And that is the stereotype that we have in the Black community. There's this weight-centric fat phobia that is very prevalent in the Black community, and it's not a good thing, and it doesn't set our young girls up for success and positive body image as they grow up.
I'm listening to what you're saying, and I actually took away, I'm probably going to use it as a hashtag, exercise should be a celebration. I like that. Mm-hmm. I ain't heard that, but I like that. Exercise should be a celebration. But I think that a lot of the things that you're talking about, obviously I know the population that you work with and where your passion kind of aligns you and what your niche is. But I think what you're saying is good across the spectrum for everybody, because I have a lot of, homeboys and friends and stuff. And when you were making, the references that you were just now, I leaned over on April because I'm like, dang, I'm guilty. Because when I see my homeboys, I'm like, hey man, you've been eating good. And I pat the belly. And my best friend who is just like my brother, I guess everybody gonna know who I'm talking about if they listen to previous episodes. But anyways, I remember when he was, going through some weight challenges, I'll say challenges, and he had lost a lot of weight. And I saw him and I was like, hey man, like your head looking real big right now. Like you looking, and when you were saying that, like that is like, that's a learned behavior within our community. I'm just going to be 100%. That's a learned behavior within our community. And that's where I picked that up from. And like you said, how people make those references just in general, and how you gave us your story of how they were used towards you. And as you were saying that, I was like, dang, I do the exact same thing. And, hearing you say that, I was like, wow, like within our community, we do that, and we are actually harming each other with the way that we talk to each other and the words that we're using towards each other. So I actually just took something away from that personally for me, because I know I do it all the time, especially when I see him and when I see other people. I mean, I have a really good friend that I did that to about a year or so ago, and he went on a fitness journey, and I mean, he looks phenomenal right now. And when I saw him about a year ago, and obviously I keep up with him, the first thing I said, I was like, oh man, you done settled down? I was like, the wife taking care of you, boy? You living a good life. That's what I told him. And, a year later, he went on his fitness journey, and he changed his diet up, and he was exercising, and he shared his journey on his social media, and I was keeping up with him and shooting him texts. But like a year ago when I made that comment, like I had no idea what was going on. I had no idea of his circumstance, his situation, if it was health related. And my initial response was that comment, So I'm glad you shared that. And I definitely wanted to make sure that I reiterated that could go across the full spectrum, not just for Black women. I think in the Black community, because I know where I learned it from, but also everyone.
Yeah, I'll add to that thought, Daryl. I do a lot of health coaching, so I help people break down their own barriers. And so for me, health coaching is not about writing your fitness program. It's not about counting your macros for you. It's about helping you understand and acknowledge whatever barrier that is keeping you in a behavior, and then helping you work through that. And one of the things that I learned actually from working with a client, she said to me, one of my challenges is that I'm being praised right now from my family for my weight loss. And she's like, I graduated with a PhD. I opened my own law firm. But the only thing that they seem to recognize that I'm doing well is that I'm losing weight. And she said the thing that they don't know is that I'm not doing it the correct way. I am not losing weight because I'm exercising or because I'm, eating healthy foods. I'm losing weight because I'm stressed out. I'm losing weight because I'm not eating. And she was like, so every time they congratulate me for losing another 5 or 10 pounds, I'm feeling terrible about myself. And, that brought a lot of like emotions to me, because I'm like, in the Black community, we harp a lot on, oh, you're not eating enough, or, why aren't you eating? Or, why aren't you drinking? Or, when are you going to get that baby weight off of you? Like, those are the things that we hear and we see a lot in our communities. And I think that it is very harmful, because we don't understand, we don't know, we don't know what someone is going through or what that circumstances. And I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I see a family member, a relative for the first time, I'm like, girl, you look good. And what that insinuates is that you didn't look good before. And it's kind of like, oh, so when you saw me last Christmas, I didn't look good because I had a couple of extra pounds on me. And so a lot of that stuff is learned behavior, and it's definitely something that I've become more aware of lately.
That's so funny. That's something that Daryl says.
I know.
He says all, because people will be, and it's more like, I think it's more like dress, like the way he dresses, but they'll be like, oh, you look so sharp today. Or like,
yeah.
And he'll be like, what? I didn't look sharp before.
Every other day, what you trying to say? You know?
But it's the same principle.
It is the same principle. Yeah, it is. So let's do this, because I think that this is a great segue into her business.
Yeah, I really do.
I want to, because that the way that it's moving,
Yeah.
I feel like I said, we like to leave the people with something. And I feel like what you provide in your business is something that people can take away from, whether it's, reaching out to you after this for your services or anything that you may share about what you do.
Yeah.
So
you have a great blog. I mean, you write articles, and I want to make sure that we talk about that, because we're excited for it. So I want everybody to be excited for it.
So I guess you can start off by telling us about the business and what it entails, and kind of give us a snapshot of what that looks like.
I will say that I really appreciate this platform, because April and Daryl, I love you too. You're great. But I've known April, and I've talked with April a lot more. And I remember when I first started writing, I sent something to April, and she sent it back, and she's like, I just made a few edits. And I was like, girl, you red penned my entire essay. But it was kind of this catalyst. It was this catalyst to like, okay, I need to this, and this was maybe like a year or so ago. Because since then we've worked on some other things, but it was this catalyst for me to really like hone in on my writing skills. And so now when you ask about what my calling is truly to write. I love educating folks on what I'm passionate about. Right now in my space, it's coaching, it's exercise, it's getting people to understand the benefits of exercise, the benefits of eating healthy. And so Coaching Kilos is the business that I have, and it is primarily centered on health coaching. So fitness and nutrition coaching, designing exercise programs. I do individualized nutrition programs where I help you understand what's going to work for you. I get new clients, and they're like, well, which type of diet do you ascribe to? And I say, the one you tell me you're going to stay on for longer than a week. That's the one that I ascribe to. So if it's keto, let's do it. If it's, whatever, low carb, let's do it. But I need it to be something that you can ascribe to. So nutrition is super important. And I say it's more important than the exercise part of it. Like, I know we've spent all this time talking about exercise, but you can't out-eat or outwork a bad diet. If you're not going to eat like you have some sense, then, you can do all the exercising in the world. And so I do fitness and nutrition programming. I also do remote weightlifting coaching. So I have I actually primarily only work with female athletes. And all of my athletes at this time are women of color, because in my sport of weightlifting, I do not see a lot of people that look like me. So I actually just wrote a blog about strength. In the Black community, strength is usually associated with some sort of aggressive behavior. And I'll tell a little bit of story, and then I'll go back to my business. But my husband, who's my biggest fan, posted one of my videos on his Facebook page, probably the only post he's done in the last 5 years, because he's not on there often. And overwhelmingly, all of the comments were about how he better watch out. He better be on his best behavior, because and painted me as this aggressive wife. Like, you better be careful because Anaja is going to kick your butt. And I'm like, why is it the fact that I am in a strength sport, for some reason tied to being an aggressive wife. But in the Black community, Black women don't do strength sports. If anything, we, do aerobic activity. We run and we bike. And that's it. We run track. But we don't pick up a barbell and throw 100 kilos over our head and be like, look at me. And so when I got into weightlifting about 4 years ago as an athlete, I was going to these competitions and I would look around and I'm like, am I in the wrong space? Like, am I not allowed here? Because I didn't see anyone that looked like me. I think there's been 2 that I know of. And so if I am wrong, I'll own that. But I only know of 2 Black female Olympians in our sport. And one was as recent as 2016, and the other one was about 20 years ago. There's been a few women of color, but not Black women. And so I'm like, okay, either I don't belong here or I need to do something to change this. And I chose the latter. So I recruit Black women, I recruit women of color to not only compete as an athlete, but because you can only be an athlete in the sport for so long before you get burned out, but they need to be coaches. They need to be club owners. They need to be referees. They need to be ingrained in our sport. And so that's a lot of what I do is I'm really promoting the sport to anyone that will listen. So I've had weightlifting conversations with people who will never touch a barbell, but I really promote it to get Black women, to get women of color in general into our sport. And I feel like that is my passion. That is my calling, is to educate, is to do research around this sport, around what motivates people to be athletes or not be athletes. And so that's what my business is. And I've enjoyed it. I've done it kind of, just very informally. And I decided that it's time to stop being informal about it. And if I want to see a change, then I need to be that change. And so that's what I started to do right around the time that the pandemic hit. So, and all competitions have been canceled. So there's that. But we're still working in the background to get that done.
That's important too, because I think I have the quarantine, what they call the quarantine. I might have gotten the quarantine.
What?
There's probably a lot of people who might need some coaching. Let me ask you, do you do remote, virtual online coaching?
I do. Most of my business is actually online and remote, and that was pre-pandemic. I only have one client that is located here in the Tampa area. Most of my clients, I have 2 athletes that are on the other side of the country, and I have been able to set up my business to deliver their programs via mobile app. They send me their videos. Technology has really allowed me to expand, more than what I would have done, 5 years ago. So I meet with them one-on-one via Zoom, and I do video analysis of their lifts, whether it be weightlifting or general fitness programming. We meet monthly to talk about what their goals are, and more frequently if they need it. I do macro counting for those that need that type of thing, for those that want to count macros and really eat according to a schedule. I help them design that. I help people kind of, like I said, health coaching is a large part of my business. So that's less of me writing out a program for you. A lot of people can do that on their own. But what they need is to understand that, okay, I have 3 children, I work 2 jobs, and I volunteer here. I don't have time to exercise. Well, I sit down and I help them carve out 1 hour a day to put it on their calendar. Or, I help them design things that they can do at home, that they don't have to go to a gym. They don't have to have a gym membership. So that's a lot of what I have been doing and what I enjoy doing.
That's awesome.
That is really awesome.
It's exciting. And just seeing your website and seeing, just your presence on Instagram inspires me And I'm not a weightlifter, and I wish I was.
You too can be a weightlifter.
You can be a weightlifter. You at least inspired me to like get out and walk a little bit today. So mission accomplished today.
I just watch. I just watch. When you be post, one of the things that I admire about you, and like, I'm not saying this just because you're on here, but like, you're talking about everything like that you do. But when I follow you on the social media, like, you about your business, like you're an action person. Like, if anybody don't take anything away from this, is like, you heard her talk all about it, but if you go follow her on social media, she is about it. And I just watch, I just be like, let me see what she doing today. I'm like, ooh wee. All right, next. That ain't for me. But you know what? I come right back. I'm like, let me see what she doing today. I'm like, ooh, she just did that clean jerk. That ain't for me. But
It's impressive though.
it is. I'm telling you, that's one of the things. I think that's one of the most like she's about it.
Yeah,
you know, a lot of people talk
yeah.
about it, but she's about it.
And you really break down that barrier of like, I don't feel like I can do this. Like, I don't even know if you would talk to me about what a clean and jerk is, I have no idea what that is. But you like break down that barrier of like, you actually post a video of like, this is what it is.
I know.
And that's the for free stuff. That's just inspiring. So anyway, this has been a really good hour podcast.
Yeah. No, this is good.
Yeah, this has been really good.
We don't want to leave without getting the information though. So let's do that now, and then we'll do the
business. And we will post all of this in the episode description for those of you who are listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you listen from. So just look in the episode description. We'll list all of what Anaja is about to say. But tell us, where can we find you on Instagram? What is your website? How do people follow you and get in contact with you?
You can follow, I'm an open book. So my website is www.coachingkilos. Coaching is CoachingKilos.com, Coaching Kilos. At Coaching Kilos on Instagram is my business page. That's where, as April said, I give away all the free stuff. So I post my most recent thing is the daily stretch, where I try to give people one thing that they can do, one actionable item that doesn't require money, that they can do to become healthier. And sometimes it's exercise, sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's food, whatever it is. But then if you want to follow me personally and see all the crazy shenanigans that I do between 5 a.m. and 10 p.m., you can follow me at Anaja Maria on Instagram. You can also find me on Facebook, but you're just going to see whatever I post on Instagram or Facebook. I don't really get on there much. So that's a little bit about me. I'm an open book. I love to answer questions, and I love dialoguing with people. So if you want to reach out, if you have a question, I'm a resource for people. That's my purpose in life.
That's awesome.
Awesome. So I'm going to drop this nugget that you shared. Start with where you're at. Mm-hmm. I want to drop that. I want to reiterate that, start with where you're at. And that looks different.
Start where you are with what you have.
Exactly what she just said. I said mine a little bit more unarticulate. Is unarticulate a word?
No.
Yes, it is. Inarticulate. I just said it on the podcast. I said it on the podcast, so it's a word. I said it unarticulately. No.
Can I give 2 references for folks to read? And I'll share this with you all if you want to drop them in the show notes. 2 articles, very good reads that I have found so insightful and kind of like jaw-dropping. One is by Susan Kahn. It's called Coming on Strong. And it's a book about the historical context of women in sport. And it talks about just how they have progressed from the early Olympics to women in strength sports to the NCAA and a lot of different organizations that have tried to promote women in sport. The second one is Amy Farrell's Fat Shame, and it looks at how American women have linked exercise and physical activity to social status. And I think that it's very interesting. It gets into this narrative about how middle-class white women attributed exercise and physical activity to being civil and respectability politics. And it talks about how Black women were left out of that conversation. And thus, there was never this kind of connection between Black women and their pursuit of exercise and physical activity, and then the rest of American society. So those would be two resources that I would give to your listeners.
Awesome. Fat shame?
Fat shame.
Fat shame. Sounds like that's my next book.
That one is an article. Coming on Strong is a book. Yeah.
Ooh, looking that up.
Cool.
Great.
All right. This has been
great.
Oh my goodness. We could just stay on here and keep going.
I know.
But we want to be respectful of the listeners and respectful of your time. And we'll have to get you back.
Yes, this has been good.
And do a follow-up.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all I have. What about you?
That's all I got.
All right. Until the next time.
Bye.
Peace.